Research Institute of Maritime and Medium and Small Shipbuilding. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
안녕하십니까.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Professor Lee Yeon-seung, for the kind introduction. Just you mentioned, I spent 27 years in the Korean Register, and also including my college years, I've been in this field for more than 30 years, and we are seeing drastic changes, and it's very bizarre, or it's not always usual to see all these kinds of challenges. So after the Industrial Revolution, I believe that we are going through the biggest change ever. Today, the theme of my presentation is GHG regulations and alternative fuel technology. And in order to tackle the regulations, we have this concept of alternative fuels. So I will share more details with you about this. So there are 4 issues that I'm going to tackle. There are 4 sections, but there are many overlapping content, so this I will skip. I will focus on the KR activities for decarbonization. At KR, which is my organization, as a classification, I'm going to talk about the role of the Korean Register. So as a brief introduction, just to give you a big picture, well, of course, you already know the timeline and the contents of regulations. If you look at the red graph on the left-hand side, the graph shows that as of 2018, there's about 1.1 billion tons of CO2 produced by the shipping industry around the world. That means that 3% of the CO2, the total CO2, is from the shipping industry. In order to reduce this figure, well, Chairman Kim Boo-gi already talked about the bridge technology, and we also looked at different technologies to achieve the target. But after 2018, even though we had huge efforts in reducing these numbers, they remain pretty much the same, and actually they are on the increase across the globe. So what these increasing numbers means is the 2030 target of 40% reduction suggested by IMO will not be achieved based on the present technologies. And in the case of the EU, which is leading the regulations in a sense, they have this Fit for 55. Compared to 1990s, they have the target of 55% reduction by 2030. And this Fit for 55, for shipping industries, there are 2 relevant issues, ETS and Fuel EU Maritime. ETS is an emissions trading system. In order to produce emissions, you have to pay for them. And Fuel EU Maritime is covering the cycle of fuels that will take effect from 2025. In order to achieve these targets, and regarding the IMO regulations, well, already our presenter from HMM touched upon regulations for existing ships and new ships, and reductions are required for existing ships in particular. And in operating our vessels, it means we will see more intervention, EEXI, CII. These are the regulations that come into the market, and also this market-based measure, which is the ETS, will come into play. And throughout the cycle of vessel fuels, we have this concept of well to wake that force us to be carbon neutral. So this will take effect starting from 2023, one by one. So it's a very heavy topic, and this is an immediate challenge that we have to respond to. So for these challenges and requirements, we're bound to try to find some answers to these challenges. So the bridge technology, as President Kim mentioned, we have this technology and other technologies to deal with this topic. Speed reduction to produce less CO2, and the generated gas, how this can be filtered mechanically and chemically, and also using fossil fuels, adding additional technologies to meet the requirements. Well, we have different approaches, but if you look at stricter regulations, there seems to be a limitation in terms of meeting these targets using present technologies. So what's in light blue shows alternative fuels. So it can be seen as a bridge technology, biofuel, bio-LNG. These are the various types of alternative fuels we can turn to. And in the field of alternative fuels, well, you already have seen this kind of graphs. So this is based on the Clarkson's research. Let's assume that there are three types of scenarios: existing fuel oil, LNG fuel, and last but not least, zero carbon fuel. So by 2050, zero carbon fuel will take up 30% of the orders, and the conventional oil fuels may not be existent by 2030. That's what it says. So when this graph first came out, not many people shared their ideas. Not many people agreed with this idea. But as we're approaching 2030, we can resonate with this. So starting from 2020, you can see that actually there are different types of fuels being used. When it comes to alternative fuels, there are many of them, starting from HFO. Starting from the second row, you can see that there are many different types, and we have to consider different physical properties, energy density, and so on. And considering energy density, that means we need a bigger capacity for storing this particular type of energy sources. And regarding alternative fuels, we're going to look at two different types. First, methanol. This was not highly popular, but last year, a very big shipping company, Maersk, placed an order for 12 container ships. So methanol caught many people's attention. Unlike other alternative fuels, this can be handled at room temperature, and its engine is already proven. So these are the advantages of methanol. But still, well, methanol that is extracted from fossil fuels cannot be used, so it really depends on how we can create green or blue methanol markets. And next, biofuel. It's not based on fossil fuels, so it does have values as carbon neutral fuels. And we can blend this with existing fuels to meet the targets of 2030. And for existing ships and shipping companies that use existing ships, they're very interested in biofuels. Next, net zero sources, which doesn't contain carbon at all. And the examples can be ammonia and hydrogen. So in terms of R&D, We believe that this can be commercialized in 2 or 3 years, and we are making preparation for the use of these net zero carbon fuels. But for ammonia, we have to consider energy density because it's related to tank capacity and also toxicity and its high auto-ignition temperature. And as it produces NOx, we need to find more ways or answers to dealing with ammonia as an alternative fuel. In the case of hydrogen, it's very difficult to use in the gas form, so it has to be a liquefied hydrogen. And it is liquefied at the temperature of minus 253 degrees Celsius, which is much lower than that of LNG of minus 162 degrees. So the materials for the fuel tanks have to be developed first to use it as an alternative fuel in a full manner. In introducing alternative fuels, this is basically creating a new path because this is something that we haven't done before. In terms of technology and operation, this is a whole new concept. And as we can see from the media coverage, accidents happened because these technologies that were related in these accidents were something that were not used before. So with that in mind, in participating in the technology demonstrations, and in order for these technologies to stabilize in the field, we are diversifying R&D activities. And as you can see from the slide, we specify these different codes, international codes like IGC code and IGF code, and we are raising voices so that we can be heard by the international organizations. And all these details can be found in the technical documents that we published, and we submitted these technical documents to international organizations. And when it comes to hydrogen, it's actually catching attention from many industries faster than ammonia. We do have preliminary standard and draft ideas, but for hydrogen, we might need some more time to make this concept more detailed. My last slide is about decarbonization, and is it something that we can avoid? Well, actually, this is not something we can avoid, and we have to be ready for the transition towards decarbonization. And the technology for decarbonization is already in the shipping industry. I studied naval architecture, and I already studied all the relevant dynamics, and with the introduction of eco-friendly vessels, I believe that affected the curricula of Korean universities. So these technologies are already reflected in the curricula of universities and in the industry as a whole. We already looked at previous presentations, and we talked about how different parties, including shipping companies and the industry and R&D experts, can play their own roles to join forces because they have different ideas. And for these technologies to settle in the market, we need systems and regulations. First, we have to have clear ideas as to what the future directions of regulations would be, and I hope the government can provide us with guidelines in our journey towards decarbonization. So I already mentioned this 3% versus 97%. In order to reduce this 3% figure, we did lots of research. But also we have to think about this remaining 97% CO2 coming from the land. The key behind decarbonization for this 97% is also held by the shipping industry, I believe. Developing vessels and LNG carriers, ammonia carriers, developing all these different types of vessels and CO2 carriers, these will be crucial in reducing this figure of 97%. So starting from decarbonization technologies toward more effective and eco-friendly technologies for transportation, I believe we can make a better contribution. Thank you.